everybody. How you doing? Everybody doing okay? You guys, you got some students that are going to be coming down the aisles in just a second. This is just if you want. There's some Play-Doh that's going to be being passed out. If you want a bag of Play-Doh, you want a little thing of Play-Doh, grab a thing of Play-Doh and just enjoy the time while we're talking tonight. And so they're going to be passing those things along. And so you guys just grab one if you want one. If you don't, then don't take one. No problem at all. This past week, I had an opportunity to talk to one of my neighbors. How many of you guys had a chance to get outside this last week and spend an hour in your front yard just to see what God did? Way to go. Excellent job. Excellent, excellent job. If you didn't do it last week, do it this week. Get out there, put yourself out there, and see what God does as you get to know your neighbors. Anybody fill out another box to know which one of your neighbors? Yeah, awesome. Very good. Anybody else? Excellent. Very, very good. So you guys, we want to be filling in. Fill in that grid there. And let's figure out who our neighbors are. At least know their names, right? At least know their names. So this last week I was talking to Heather. Heather was during her time that she was spending out in front, and I was coming back from a hunt. And we got to talk for just a second. Heather was telling me a story of what happened this last week in her life. I asked her if I could share this. And so this last week, true to form with most of us, Heather was running behind. And she was needing to get to work quickly. And you know what happens whenever you need to get to work, especially after a Sunday where we talk about reorienting our lives to where the interruptions are possible. You know, after a Sunday like that, you know the interruptions are coming. And so Heather is walking out of her house, and lo and behold, about that time, one of our neighbors is making his way across the street to come and see her and to talk with her for just a second. This last week we had an unfortunate reality. We had a death on our street this last week. And so it was an elderly, one of our neighbors that has been anticipating for a while now, but it did make for an interesting week on our block. And so the neighbor was coming across to talk with Heather about it for just a bit. And Heather, you know what we do, guys. When you don't know what's coming, you see people and you kind of like wave at them and you're kind of moving on, hoping they pick up the fact that, you're in a hurry and you need to make this happen. So she does that. She kind of waves, but notices he's still walking out the corner of her eye. He's still walking over. He's not slowing down. He's not picking up the context clues or any of that stuff. Keeps walking across the way, and lo and behold, Heather's like, you know what? Okay, I'm gonna have to stop, and I need to talk. And he kept coming over and had a chance to talk with her for just a moment. Fast forward to the end of this story, because this is the best part. As she has a chance to talk to him, and he's talking about the death of one of our neighbors, and she gets to give care to him. He recently lost what he would call his wife, and so. I say recently, it's been a little while, but it was just kind of bringing all that back. Heather being able to give care, and then at the end of the conversation, Heather goes, you're stuck with us, and because it's that idea of I don't know what I would do without this group of people kind of idea. And Heather says, well, you're stuck with us, and he responds back to her and says, it's a good stuck. And that's what we do. This is who we are called to be a neighbor, to love where we live, and to love our neighbors as we love ourselves, to love God the Father with all of our heart, with all of our soul, with all of our mind, with all of our strength, and to allow His love to flow in and through us to everyone, especially those who live right next door or right across the street or right behind us. Tonight we continue this series, Love Where You Live, part of hundreds of churches in the area that are also at this exact time teaching this same material in hopes that the greater Austin community, the greater Austin area, the church gets the privilege of bringing good news to our neighborhoods, not with an agenda other than simply for it to be a better place to live. We're counting on God to do the rest of the stuff that needs to happen, but we legitimately want to simply enjoy where we live, to love our neighborhoods, to love our town, to love our community, to love the area in which we live. We live in a great area. It's absolutely amazing. It can be even better. No question about it. And so we're talking through this. Our key verse for this whole series is Luke 10:27. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, with all your mind. and then to love your neighbor as yourselves. How many of you guys in this room are big news watchers? You guys watch the news? I watch the news every morning around 7 o'clock. I go from about 7 to 7:15 because I figure I can get all the headlines and all that kind of stuff, and I watch during that time. How many of you guys enjoy all the good news that's on the news? All the good news that's on the news. Isn't it amazing how every single story they talk about the beautiful things that are happening? All of the things in this world that are good and make people feel good and all that kind of stuff. It's not the news at all, is it? In fact, if you watch the news enough, you be careful because you're going to get depressed. It's amazing because, and of course it's no mistake. It's no mistake because every single one of us, like we're driving down the road, you see a wreck, everybody wants to see what happened. So you turn to look because we're drawn to the tragedy. We're drawn to the negative because in some kind of sick way, it almost makes us feel a little bit better about ourselves, doesn't it? If we're really honest. And so the news leverages that. And it draws attention whenever there's somebody's story that is not glamorous or something that is scary or something that is whatever. And this fear tactic is leveraged at a very, very high level. Well, the thing that is an unfortunate reality is due to this 24-hour access of news that we have at our fingertips. What's happened is it's actually turned us into a fear-based society. It's turned us into this society that is afraid of neighbors. That's afraid of people that live right down the street. It's afraid that there might be some tragedy. And now our kids are spending a whole lot more time inside. The kids are spending a lot more time on technology rather than outside enjoying some freedom outside, right? It's something that's an epidemic in our area. And so we find ourselves with this whole mentality of this 24-hour access to news and the negative side of news and the fear-based society that we live in. And now all of a sudden we hear phrases like, good fences make good neighbors. And everybody's got a privacy fence, and everybody's got a garage door opener, and everybody can live a very, very isolated life, right? That's not who we're called to be as believers. We know that there's God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit showing relationship between the Godhead, which means He created in us, in His image, this relational aspect. And when we isolate ourselves, we're outside of the makeup that God wove into us in our mother's womb. And so it creates all kinds of imbalances. Good fences make good neighbors. How terrible is that? It's a horrible, horrible mentality to have. Because Jesus has called us to engage in the messiness of relationships. Jesus knows that relationships are hard. He knows that they're messy. He knows that there's stuff going on out there. He knows that there's things to be afraid of. He knows that there's that stuff. But He's called us into the messiness of relationships because real relationships are always messy. Take me and my wife. We have a phenomenal marriage. Absolutely amazing. We love each other more today than the day when we got married, and we enjoy spending time together. But the fact is, it's messy. There are things we don't see eye to eye on. There are conversations that we disagree about. There are things like that. And it takes a lot of work to make two people who love each other so much to get along. It's amazing to me how challenging that is. And it's because real relationships, they're always messy. If she would just see my way, we'd be good. The problem is that she is a much better lawyer than I am. And so when we get into these messy moments, she can whip me up one side and down the other. I don't stand a chance. And the whole time, and you know how these conversations end? I'm sorry, honey, you're right. You know what I mean? It's amazing. Relationships, real relationships, even good relationships, they're always messy. And man, you take this into account with your neighbors, people you barely even know. All kinds of skeletons in the closet. All kinds of, man, relationships are crazy messy. Think about your family, like your extended family. How messy is your family? How are your family reunions? Loads of fun, aren't they? Super fun. Awesome. You get to go and learn all how jacked up your family is. Because all of ours are messed up, right? Let's just all admit it tonight. Every single one of our families are a basket case. I mean, they're all messed up. Man, guys, this is life. We're called to real relationships. We're called to the messiness of these real relationships. Jesus, man, we're to be a Christ follower. Jesus leads the way in messy relationships. He sets the tone for us. Luke chapter 7, verses 36 and 37. I'm going to read a little bit beyond that, but the foundation is here. This is the moment when Jesus gets anointed by what is called a sinful woman. Verse 36. One of the Pharisees invited Jesus to have dinner with him. He went to the Pharisee's house and he reclined at the table. A woman in that town who lived a sinful life learned that Jesus was eating at the Pharisee's house. So she came there with an alabaster jar of perfume. As she stood behind him at his feet weeping, she began to wet his feet with her tears. Then she wiped them with her hair, kissed them, and poured perfume on them. Verse 39, when the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he said to himself, if this man were a prophet, he would know who is touching him and what kind of woman she is, that she is a sinner. Now guys, I tell you, there's a lot in this text here that we could really talk about the whole neighboring thing. I mean, first of all, Jesus is at the Pharisee's house eating dinner. That's a big deal. I mean, Jesus came to turn the whole Pharisee world upside down. He's sitting at a dinner table talking to them. Very easily, he could have not done that. But Jesus, being the relational being that he is, desired to break bread, to find that common ground, and to bring life to people. And so he sat down to have dinner. One of the things, though, that is perhaps maybe the most important thing that we can take away from this text is that Jesus makes religious people uncomfortable. He makes religious people uncomfortable because he's willing to receive a foot washing from this scandalous woman. We have to check ourselves in this, don't we? How many of us in this room are religious? If you really want to get down to it, we very quickly have those thoughts that go into our mind, just like this Pharisee that says, I cannot believe he would associate with her. We very quickly can find ourselves there if we're not careful. So tonight we have to ask ourselves this question. Are we willing to be around people who live extremely differently than we do? Are we willing to do this? That's the first step. Are we willing to be around people who live extremely differently than we do? The story continues. Jesus says to Simon, he says, do you see this woman? So the idea here is, really, do you really see what's going on here, Simon? Do you really see her? The call to us. Do you really see what's going on with your neighbors? Do you really see these people who are near to you? Do you know what's going on? Here it is. Jesus says to Simon, I came into your house. You didn't give me any water for my feet, but she wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You didn't give me a kiss, but this woman, from the time I entered, has not stopped kissing my feet. You didn't put oil on my head, but she poured perfume on my feet. Therefore, I tell you, her many sins have been forgiven, as her great love has shown. Whoever has been forgiven little, loves little. She had a lot on the line. She knew where she was. She was real with who she was, and she identified with Jesus as her Savior. And so therefore she wanted to anoint him and to care for him at such a high level. But this Pharisee, who is supposed to be the one who knows the truth about the Messiah, the most churched one, the one who knows God supposedly more than this sinful woman, is the one who Jesus was just another dude eating dinner at his house. Which side of the fence do we find ourselves on in that story? Is Jesus just kind of this pet that we have, that we access whenever we need something? He's just some tool that's out there that we can use as a part of our repertoire of things to problem solve? That's the religious side of things. Or do we understand he is Savior? We understand he is the one that we need at a level that we can only imagine. We know that we understand at the level we know right now, but we actually need him more than we even can imagine right now. Where do we fall? Are we more religious than relational, or are we more relational than religious? Religious, in case you're wondering, is not a good thing. Being religious is bad. So one of the ways you like to describe yourself is, or other people, if you describe, well, they're very religious, understand you're putting them down if you say that. okay? Because that means that Christianity is just a checklist to do things. So Jesus often made religious people uncomfortable because of the people that he spent time with. And so here's my question for each of you tonight. You ready? When was the last time you were accused of being friends with sketchy people? Ooh. Because the good news is, you need to be friends with sketchy people. If you're not friends with sketchy people, you need to meet some sketchy people. It's time. Get sketchy with it. When was the last time you were accused? In all seriousness, are all your friends Christians who are polished and put together and safe? Or do you have people that your Christian friends might wonder, why would you spend time with them? Because those are the people we need to spend time with. That's who Jesus spent time with. If we're really going to get honest with ourselves, though, this right here is not an easy way to live, because it's not pretty. It doesn't look good to our culture. It's not easy. And I think one of the hardest things is being good friends with sketchy people without allowing their sketchiness to make you sketchy. You with me? Because how many times do you find yourself with sketchy people sometimes, and they're using language that perhaps maybe is not the most beautiful language. It might be colorful, but it's not the most beautiful language, and you find yourself entering into that same dialogue. Or perhaps you're drinking a beer on the weekends and you're enjoying some time with your friends, and the next thing you know, they're drinking a little bit too much, and so therefore you find yourself drinking a little bit too much. Maybe they're doing it on purpose, but you, to kind of not want to be weird or feel awkward, you go there with them too. Life takes balance, doesn't it? That's why there's two parts to this command. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. When you do that, there is a foundation to where when you are loving your sketchy neighbors as you love yourself, there's security and there's self-discipline because you are listening to the voice of the Lord. And you know the line, and you don't cross the line. Very, very important. Again, Jesus was the master at this. Man, he rocked the church's world in the first century. Take the calling of Levi for that matter. Luke chapter 5, we go back a couple of chapters. Verse 27. Jesus went out, saw a tax collector. These people were hated, man. Golly. You think the IRS is hated today? These people are like, make the IRS look like a bunch of powder puffs. Jesus went out, saw a tax collector by the name of Levi sitting at his tax booth. Follow me, Jesus said, and Levi got up. He left everything, he followed him. Then, cool part. Then Levi throws a party. He held a great banquet for Jesus at his house. Talk about scuttlebutt in the neighborhood. You know? A large crowd of tax collectors and others were eating with them. He's like, dude, come over here. I need you to meet this guy. They all show up. The Pharisees and the teachers of the law, though, who belonged to their sect, complained to Jesus' followers, his disciples. Why do you eat and drink with tax collectors and sinners? Jesus answered them a very, very big time answer. It's not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I've not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. Guys, Levi gathers his friends by throwing a party. Jesus comes to the party and is accused of hanging out with messy people. Yet Jesus maintains his life as a reflection of God the whole time. Jesus is able to see the balance. And it's not because Jesus is walking around going, no, I've already had one, I shouldn't have any more. I love Jesus. You know, Scripture says, you know, that should not cause another man to stumble, so I should probably stop here. Come on. Jesus is real, he's authentic, he's relational, and it scared the church to death. When's the last time you were accused of being friends with sketchy people? And And whenever you are around sketchy people, maybe you have a lot of friends that are that way, do they know the difference between you and them? Is there any difference? Or has Jesus become religion to where that's what happens on Sunday? Between the Sundays, life is different. You see all the evaluation that we have to have for ourselves when it comes to loving our neighbors. When it comes to loving where we live. When it comes to living a life that is a reflection of God the Father and His Son Jesus. There's a high calling here. Here's how this works out in my life. In my life, years ago, I'm so thankful for my neighbors, because my neighbors already had the parties going on. There was already gatherings that were happening. There was already all this stuff. And I got the privilege of simply entering in. I know not all of your neighborhoods are this way, but I got the privilege of entering in to what was already happening. It was awesome, and it was amazing. And God has genuinely taken care of the rest. You can ask any of my neighbors. There's never been a preachy moment. There's never been anything like that. It simply is live life. No agenda. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And be a friend to your neighbors. Love them enough to be there for them and make yourself available. And it is remarkable how when we come with a non-judgmental attitude towards people, and we genuinely long to know what's going on in their lives, relationship happens. When we stop talking about ourselves long enough to learn about what's happening in other people's lives, relationship happens. And over time, more and more and more of that happens, then the questions come. And in that moment, truth is able to be told. And it's not preachy truth, it's just simply the story. It's the story, your story, talking about what life is like. And that is genuinely how there's been several people that we've seen life completely change. But it's not because evangelist Danny started walking down the street trying to convert all my neighbors. Quite frankly, I don't feel like the Cook family did a whole lot at all. I feel like there was genuinely relationship and friendship. And out of that, the Lord did everything else. It's a really pretty cool deal. And it's never been a problem. And it's not because of what I do for a living. But it's never been a problem to be around, for the sake of tonight, messy people. And even worry about any kind of sketchiness influencing me in a negative way. If anything, the messiness has helped me pull my guard down at a very healthy level to where I'm much more real today than I was 12 years ago. I'm much more honest, much more transparent. And that's the result of being in a relationship with people that are very different, lived a very different life than I lived. So guys, loving our neighbors, it's not rocket science. It just takes time, and it takes a lot of love. But the thing we have to understand is that the issue of neighboring will confront many things in our lives. If there are things that you hope your neighbors never find out about you, those are the very things that are going to bubble up to the surface. You just got to know it. Because chances are, your neighbors are struggling with the very same thing you're struggling with. And the Lord longs to use your struggle story for His good. He longs for that to be hope. He longs to get to tell a story that's much different than the expected church story. And that's what happens when we have real relationships that become very, very messy. The things that it confronts in our lives oftentimes is how we spend our money and how we spend our time. Those are the things that will get exploited more than anything else. Because those are the things your neighbors care about. They care about your possessions. They care about the vacations you're on. They care about all these things because they're trying to see how they measure up to you. Just like most likely you're doing to them. How you spend your time, how you spend money. It's going to confront how we view our things. If you're a very inward person and your stuff is your stuff, neighboring's not going to work for you. Because being a neighbor means you share. It means you hold your possessions very loosely, and when your neighbor breaks your equipment or doesn't return it for 6 months, it doesn't wig you out. You're not worried about how much that thing cost. Because it's just a thing. But this is one of those things that if that's something that's a big thing for you, that's going to be something we've got to give to the Lord. And what it also does is, man, guys, and you introverts in the room, I'm going to tell you, this series here, I know gives you diarrhea at a level that you never even realized you would have. I realize that. But you introverts, this is one of those things that is going to cause you to confront this major fear you have, which is talking to people. Which is really walking across the street and knocking on a door of somebody you don't know in hopes you're going to shake their hand, you're going to touch them, and then find out their name, and then talk to them and try to have some sort of conversation. Is that not scary as all get out? I know it is. I'm a major extrovert. I don't like doing that. I can only imagine the fear that wells up in some of you sitting in this room thinking, no, hell's about to freeze over before I'm doing that. But guys, this is who we're called to be, and we have to trust that God is going to equip us. He's going to be there with us. He's going to comfort. He's going to guide. And those fears, when they well up in us, we know His strength is perfect when our strength is gone. We know His perfect love drives out all fear. And as His love has poured in through us, and we have the eyes to see how much He loves us with all of our mess that we have going on, we then can turn that towards somebody else and go, man, I don't care how messed up you are. I love you. Because I don't deserve the love that I have. I know you don't deserve my love for you, but the fact is that we're going to freely give it. With no strings attached. Because that's who we're called to be. But man, it makes us confront these things in our lives, doesn't it? It makes us confront our possessions. It makes us confront money. It makes us confront all of that stuff. And really evaluate what matters most on this planet. But guys, I promise you, this confrontation of our fears, it is totally worth it. 100%. Because you think you're living a life that is free right now. When you learn more and more to put yourself out there and to trust God with it, you're going to discover a freedom that you know nothing about today. John 10:10 is going to come alive and well in your life that you had no idea that Jesus really did come to give you life to the fullest measure. And He did it for your neighbors too. And so this is the thing. It's totally worth it. Can I please encourage you tonight? Love where you live. Love your neighbors. Care for them. Take up your cross. Choose, just like Jesus. Crawl up on that cross. Die to yourself and follow Christ's example. Because He didn't die on the cross for Himself. He died on the cross for you and me. So let's crawl up on the cross, not for ourselves, not so that we get these accolades, but let's crawl up on the cross for other people. Let's put ourselves to the side and allow other people to take that point position in our lives. Let's make sure that we're loving where we live. So here it is, guys. Just like Heather discovered this last week, relationships are not pretty. They're not pretty. They're inconvenient. They're hard. They're challenging. But here's the thing. They're extremely significant. And so when you think about your neighbors, when you think about relationships, guys, they're not going to be pretty. But I promise you, it's going to be significant. There will be great significance. You may not get to see it for years and years, but it will be significant. So here it is, the challenge. We're finishing up this series tonight, so here's the challenge. For the next 3 months, on October 3rd is National Night Out. It's where we get to honor our police officers, we get to honor the emergency personnel that are out there. And so this is a perfect night that we have coming up. National Night Out. This is huge. It's a great opportunity to get out in your neighborhoods. And as the police come down the streets, as the police, if there's something in your neighborhood that's honoring to the police officers, this is a great opportunity to meet your neighbors. It's a great opportunity to throw a party. It's a great opportunity to get outside of your houses and get to know people. And then we've got some natural rhythms of our culture that we can leverage. Thanksgiving is coming up. You ever thought about having a Thanksgiving meal with your neighbors? I'm not talking about doing it on Thanksgiving Day. No. Do it some other time. Have you ever thought about doing a Thanksgiving meal with your neighbors? Maybe out in your driveway, set up a bunch of tables. Just eat together. Hang out. Hang some cool lights or something. Just have a time together with your neighbors. We've also got the Super Bowl coming up. I know it's a little bit beyond 3 months. There's also New Year's Eve. There's all kinds of times. This is the perfect season of the year also because it's football season. And while your friends are crying in their beers about UT last night, so sorry guys. Oh man, all my UT fans, I'm so sorry. Oh. I really am. I was like, man, that poor kicker is never going to forget this. Oh my gosh, terrible. But football season, it's perfect. Spend some time in the garage. Spend some time with your neighbors. Get out there. Put yourself out there. If you know your neighbors, you know 1 or 2 of your neighbors, this is a great time for you to work with them, coordinate something, get together, and get to know people. It's a huge deal. But it doesn't take a whole lot to do it. So throw a block party. You don't want to throw a block party? So invite people over to your house and throw a party. But here's the prayer for this week. The prayer for this week is this. God, would you give us eyes to see where you are already at work in our neighborhoods and in the lives of my neighbors. Give us the eyes to see. So that when we're gathered together with our neighbors, whenever we're standing out in our front yard, or whenever we're pausing for a moment from whatever it is that we're doing outside, God, would you give us the eyes to see where you're already at work, and then meet you there. Meet you, God, there. And then, Lord, let us be the presence of Christ by being good news in the lives of our neighbors. Can we do this? This starts now. It's going to finish up this spring. And this spring we're going to have this big movement where you're going to be calling people to your houses, gathering them together, asking how we can be better neighbors for each other. You're going to need to know them before then. All right? And so between now and then, just host some gatherings. Work together with your neighborhood and get together and enjoy loving where you live. Y'all pray with me. Lord, I thank you for tonight. I thank you for the challenge to be like Jesus, to enter into the messy relationships that are there. And Lord, they're right in front of our faces. And Lord, I pray that you help us to confront those fears and to open up our hands and say, okay, God, these are yours. We trust you with our lives. We trust you with the fear, and we know that your love is going to drive that out. So Lord, I pray that you help us. Help us know what to say. Help us know what to do. And Lord, help us to listen to your voice. And when something feels weird, to back off. But Lord, when something feels right, to push the gas pedal and to move forward and lean in. I pray, Lord, that you help us not to force anything. Lord, let us not be those weird, awkward neighbors that people fear coming over and trying to make them be like us. Lord, please, let us be real. And Lord, let us enter into a relationship with people that are not like us at all. But trust the fact, Lord, that you're going to show us what the common ground is that we can be united in. And then, Lord, let us camp out there and count on you to do what you do. Lord, we know we are not the people that turn hearts towards you. That's you. Lord, let us be available. Let us make ourselves available. But Lord, more importantly, we pray, Lord, that in that availability, let us make sure we are available to you. Lord, we are so thankful to get to be your bride. We're so thankful to get to live in your shadow. And Lord, we pray that you will help us see the purpose in which you put us on this planet. To love you with all of our heart, soul, mind, strength. To love our neighbors as we love ourselves. We love you, Lord. We pray these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.